I'm sharing the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
So, in today's topic, we're going to touch on two topics actually, event segmentation theory and causality. Uh, Before we dive into these topics, I have sent you the PDF. Open it up.
Okay.
This is the title of the PDF, Codex Seraphinianus or something. So what I want you to do is like take some time, 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever you want. Go through this particular PDF, like do whatever you want to do with it. By whatever you do, be cognizant of what you're doing and what is happening, how you're trying to approach this text and so on. Just take some time, run through it once. I'll try to share it here, but let me see.
Okay.
We have it downloaded.
I had it in a tab open, which I accidentally closed. Just give me a second.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm going to stop my screen sharing for a bit now. Just give me a second. Is am I still sharing my screen?
Mm.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Nice to see.
Yeah, I have the PDF open with me now.
Already,
What
I'll
do you
run
what
through
do you
it
want me
or
to do?
like if, hello.
Yeah.
I want you to go through this text once, like see what you make of it, like how you approach it, what do you see. I'll begin to ask some questions about your approach in 5 to 10 minutes. Like it's a long text. I don't expect you to go through all the 373 pages that it is, but run through it to see like what you make of it. Okay?
Okay.
I'm sharing my screen just to like present uh, the material once. So this is the text.
Do you want me to look at it in a detailed manner or like just scroll through it like
Scroll through it, like pause where you think you want to pause, see what you make of it. Like just spend 5 to 10 minutes on it. Let's see what comes out of it. Be cognizant of how you're approaching the text.
yeah.
Then I'll ask you what do you make of it and questions like that. Like from there we'll take it on. Okay.
Okay.
All right, could you come back?
Yeah. So I've just gone through about 70 pages out of 300 and something.
That's good enough. That's good enough. Come back, come back.
Okay. Mm.
So, hello.
Yeah,
Can you see my PPT?
I can see your screen, but not your PPT. It's Codex.
Yeah. That's the PPT. I can move around.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
You can see the title Codex Seraphinianus, right?
Yes. Yes.
So this is the title of the text that I gave you. What do you make of it? What do you think it is, and so on?
So as I moved along the text, my idea of what it is changed very much. In the beginning, I thought it is something like the first
Right.
very page had some two human beings converting into some animal, and it was very weird and like it felt very strange to even look at that thing. And then I thought it has to do something with language or some coding or like something like that. But later it became about plants. So right now my takeaway is that they're talking about plants and then they're talking about animals. So the first part, which is talking about plant, they put different varieties of plants and how things function. And at some point, I also thought they showed some kind of destruction of plants. Um,
Destruction, you said?
yeah, like tree. There were some pictures of trees falling and things fading away. So it seemed like they were hinting at some kind of destruction. Um, my first and then they also showed a human being, so I thought maybe are they trying to show human destruction, but I'm not sure. It wasn't very clear, but that and but a few pictures in between, they seem to not have make any sense, like to the series of it. Like I remember a particular picture of this guy with the balloon, and he's blowing the balloon and then he uses it to fly or something like that. So I don't know what was the point of it, but again I didn't get a lot of time to look at it carefully. um
Right. Just give me a second. Right. So whenever we approach almost like an alien texts, we sort of
um
rely on our background knowledge of our world to sort of infer what is happening, right? So
yeah.
these are the kind of questions that people tend to generally ask whenever they encounter a text
um
like I was just given you.
Sorry, just a
Yeah.
second. One of the biggest major theme that I forgot to mention before was that it felt like a prehistoric text, and which was trying to show some kind of evolutionary thing. Yeah, that
Did
was
you
one of.
think did you
Yeah,
think the text was talking about this world? Matlab, like did it?
I could. I wouldn't say exactly this world, but I could
Hmm.
get some elements which were relatable to this world.
I'll like there are some questions that I'll ask you.
Mm-hmm.
See if you have asked yourself any of these questions, right? So something like this. Are you like see if you're curious about these things? Like for example, here or like whatever I've listed here,
Mm-hmm.
text producer, who produced it, right? Who made this text? What
Mm-hmm.
is the language that it is written in? What are the objects that it details it, the images of the objects, what is going on there? When was it written? You said it's a prehistoric text, or at least the content is prehistoric in nature. What was it written? Where was it written? Where is it set? Like if it's a story or something, where is it set?
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is happening, like event info,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
what are the various things that are happening, causal links between events, like it's a story again, the things
Yeah.
are happening, uh, rules of the text world, like a guy is twisted backward forward, like the woman and a guy are turning into crocodile, like is it possible, uh, in this kind of world, is it a fictional world, right? Like is it a fictional or a real world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why was it written? What's the purpose of the text? To whom was it written for? Intended audience, relevance to me, like why am I being shown this text? Why, like, is there any relevance to it, relevance to me? Do I get something out of it? Do I comprehend something that is useful to me, like in this class, in this class context you're being shown, so you are probably expecting me to explain you something or make a point by showing you the text and so on, right?
Yeah.
What appeals to me, and why? Knowledge of a lost world, is it a knowledge of a lost world? Also some questions about how does it make you feel, and who are the people, animals, animate entities described in the book? What's their culture, origins, if any? Do I have the capacity and the knowledge to understand these beings? How do they feel? And do I have access to their feelings in some sense? What are their experiences like? Does the text say something about our own future relevance? Because the questions can go on. This is just like a small set of limited questions here, but when you're given a text, many kinds of questions pop up when you approach it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is where I wanted to start off to showcase that it is not an easy task to simply make sense of a given text. We need to have a certain kind of familiarity with it. You need to be able to recognize the language that it is written in. You need to know the language to read it, like if it's a text. If it's images, you need to know, you need to recognize various objects that it is describing. Like along those lines, I've like sort of extracted a image from the book that I gave you. Like, let's try to understand what you can recognize from it, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So tell me all the various things that you see. What do you recognize? What don't you recognize, and so on, like this, like that.
In this particular picture,
In this particular picture, yes.
hmm, I recognize some robotic person,
Right, there's a
um,
person's face or something like this, right? But it doesn't
person's
seem
face
human because, like, look at
of
the
the,
back of the person is
yeah,
all turned up. Yeah.
yeah. I was
He
going to
also
say
has
that.
hands. He's also gripping.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I can also say about the vehicle. So it
It's a
seems looks
vehicle, right?
like
You call
some
it a vehicle.
vehicle
Just give a second. It's a vehicle. Why do you say that it's a vehicle?
because it has tires and it has some
It
kind
has
of
wheels, right? It has wheels. It has some kind of what?
like front going thing, like headlights
Yeah,
and
directional. It's
directional.
almost seems
Yeah,
like it is headed in this direction,
yeah.
right? And what do you see? Have you ever encountered anything like this? That it, does it resemble in
I
any
can
sense?
also I can also see some kind of cupboard or coffin. I don't know at the very end.
This,
Uh,
right? This
mhm.
part.
Yeah, this part
This part. Right.
because it
Uh,
has somebody can lift it more. It's more like a coffin. Yeah,
right. The shape of it resembles a coffin, but it's put up
I
upside.
can also
Hmm.
recognize
Turned up.
some colors which are like rainbow colors, which are in between.
These.
Yeah,
Right. There are colors you recognize. Good. Yeah.
yeah.
And there are also headlights. It looks like, no?
Yeah, yeah, I told headlights pehle.
Headlights, right?
What is this thing in
This.
between? I don't know, like that
What do
green
you mean? This
thing
one?
and the so one thing is that there's a binoculars or something that the
Yeah, it's
person is
looking the
looking at,
eyepiece.
eyepiece, and that is
Mm.
good going towards something like that blue, deep blue thing. I don't know what that is.
This.
Um, no, this is green above this.
Oh, this one is. I have my eye protection thing turned on. That's why the colors are a bit distorted. But so you do recognize a few things, right? Like for example, tires. You recognize like some kind of light sending objects, like headlights. You also recognize the human part of it, but like it seems distorted and almost inanimate, almost robotic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So also like you understand he's gripping, he has hands, he also has a face, but it doesn't seem human because things seem to be projecting out of his eye, all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't exactly like predict its trajectory. Like for example, just give me a second. For example, say a car, right? Say a car, you are familiar with it, you also are driving it, you understand its velocity, you understand how to steer it left and right, what it can do, its affordances, what it can do, what it can't do, what does it require. Like requires a driver, there's a the vehicle can be controlled in a particular way, there are brakes, accelerator, steering wheel, and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we, then the question sort of comes up ki how do we understand the car, but not this vehicle. Even with car we don't exactly understand how the engine sort of propels the car forward. A lot of people may not know the exact mechanics, they may
Yeah.
not be able to reconstruct a car. So what does it mean for humans then to sort of master the car? Like you're given a driving license and you're put on roads to sort of run this vehicle, use it. A lot of people have use it on a day-to-day basis, but they may not understand the exact mechanisms behind how it runs, how the engine runs, how various parts come together to make this whole. But still they have some awareness of what the car needs. It runs on fuel, petrol or diesel or gas, and it can go at a certain velocity. It can do a certain things. It can't do a certain things, right? You like people understand it in these terms,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, do you have any questions at this point or anything to add?
I'm trying to understand the point you're trying to make. Like, I understand the example, I understand
Mm-hmm. Right.
you asked me to interpret this, but what is the exact point that you're trying to
My
make?
point is ki when you enter any alien world, an unfamiliar world, or when you're born or something, uh, how do we begin to make sense of this world? We ask, when we are born without any knowledge. We acquire that knowledge, and then when we encounter new things, we tend to ask these questions. And how do we build up the knowledge about the world? And how do we use these knowledge to sort of extrapolate and make sense of any new phenomenon? One of the things that you said, right? You call it a vehicle. You call
Mm-hmm.
it a vehicle, and you expect it to move forward in one direction or the other. And like with car you may say that it has a parallel, this vehicle has a parallel with like maybe a car. Like so these are the, so I'm trying to make a point that background knowledge becomes quite important. And we often don't think of how we acquire background knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll spend some time trying to understand like how humans sort of try to make sense of the world. And within that, within all this realm of like knowledge, particular one particular things become quite important, which is causality. How do we understand cause and effects in the world. What causes, for example, this car to move forward, uh, like all things like that. So let's dive into the topic right away, which is causality. So we have two definitions listed here. Like one is this, and this one is the second one. Let's begin with the first definition, which is loose definition, where C and E are two distinct possible events. C and D are two distinct possible events. E causally depends on C if and only if C were to occur, E would occur, and if C were not to occur, E would not occur. Like so, if you have like just a second, you have C. If it occurs, then it would automatically lead to E. If it doesn't occur, then it would not lead to E. It shouldn't lead to E. In that sense, then we say, if that's the case, then we say E is causally dependent on C. These are technical definitions. Let's try to understand them with examples. Right? Just give me a second. We'll come back to the second definition in a second. So, um, yeah, this is the example. Let's like, read it out loud.
You want me to read it out?
Yeah, just read it out loud.
Every person that comes into room X is immediately made to sit in the chair Y. Person P comes into room X and he's made to sit in the chair Y. Person P coming into room X caused the outcome of him being seated in the chair Y. Person P's birth is not the cause here because it doesn't guarantee the outcome of him being seated in the chair Y. It is necessary though. In the circumstances,
All
person
right. Like
P,
let's run through this example, like using a diagram or something. So you have a room. Sorry, one second. So you have a room X. The room X, it has an entrance, and there's a chair in it, right? And person P has options of either walk in or do not walk in. If he walks in, whoever walks in is made to sit in the chair, and if he doesn't walk in, then he's not made to sit in the chair, right? So in this sense, we sort of conclude that P walking in into this room caused him to sit in the chair or being seated in the chair. Like this may not be clear. Let's use a more simpler example. Just give me a second. Let me just use some. For example, let's say the person stands on a tall building of height h. He holds out a ball, right? And he can drop it or he cannot. Like he doesn't drop it. If he drops it, it hits the floor, ground. Like this is the ground. What would you conclude here? Hello.
yeah,
According to this definition, what would you conclude here?
what is he doing again? He's throwing the ball.
No, no, he is holding the ball outward and he
Yeah,
can drop it or he doesn't drop it. If he drops it, it hits the ground. That's the like world rules, or like I'll explain that in a
yeah,
second.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so if you
Dropping the ball would lead to
who
the
is
ball
who is
falling on
causing, like the
ground.
question is who is causally responsible, or what is causally responsible for the ball to hit the ground?
Who is or what is? I mean, the person has to throw it for it to hit the ground. So it's
Yes, right. The
phenomenon
person
of
has to
throwing it.
drop the ball. The action of person plus dropping the ball sort of causes it to hit the ground. And like this is scenario one. For example, let's say same scenario happens in. So this is like The point I'm trying to make is there are certain world rules that are not inherent in the given question or something like that, which sort of drive the causal thing forward. Causality is not always a simple phenomenon, like it's not directly observable. Let's try to understand it like using the second example. Like this time we are in
Wait a
space.
second.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Let me. Is it okay if I
Yeah,
stop
yeah, you
the
can ask
recording?
whatever questions like to understand. I understand that you may feel stuck right now. Go ahead and ask.
Yeah, you can say.
So the point I was trying to make earlier, Akansha, is that the way we make sense of the world, one of the main important sort of facilitating mechanisms is through linking two things either causally or correlating them. So for now, let's have our focus on causality
Mhm.
and see how drawing a link between two things is possible, right?
Okay.
And as in the previous class we have seen, the world is a continuous, like never-ending place. So for us to sort of understand or extract meaning, we have to have the capacity to isolate. So even if you look at the definition, which I had run pehle, like these things, here he's saying ki causality happens between two distinct events, right? C and E, which are distinct from each other. And he's saying they're possible events. So, in a continuous world, we have already extracted information or isolated information such that they both are different from one another, and C sort of comes prior to E and causes E, right? In one of the books that was written in 1920s titled Causality and Modern Science, uh, the writer says ki causal chains are at best rough approximations for short periods of time as they assume a fictitious isolation of the process in question from the remaining processes. My point of bringing causality in this particular lecture is to indicate that although we can naturally seem to isolate stuff, it is not a feature of the world, but rather a feature of the human mind to sort of isolate and to relate. And causality doesn't itself present easily to be understood as well. That I was trying to show you through that example of gravity. But before we jump to that example, let's just run through these points that were made in this book.
So, what is
The
causal
first point.
chain?
Sorry.
What is causal chains?
Causal chain is, for example, one second, bunch of events. Like there are bunch of events. E1, E2, E3, E4, and like my last event would be C. Like in fact, I've inverted it here. Let's just say, let me just like erase that one second. You have C1, C2, C3, da da da, and then last my E. So we can take causal chains to be two ways. One is like this is the prime event and this is the effect event. This is the cause wala event and this is the effect wala event. And it doesn't just happen like cause and effect don't just take place SE. They happen through mediating effects, mediating events, and then eventually things lead there. For example, when you're dropping the ball, right, the ball has to travel this continuous medium. So at every point you could just like consider it to be C2, C3. It's a process. So this is one way of interpreting it. The another way of interpreting is uh, C1 and E1 leads to E1, and then E1 leads to E2, and then E2 leads to E3. These are distinct events, and each event is causing the other event. C causes E, and because E has been caused, that causes E2, and that causes E3 in that sense. Even here, like if you come back, the guy dropping the ball, if you pause here, to reach here, he had to have dropped that ball. So that would be like one, like in the process, within this process there is a micro event, you may call it. Hello.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Do you have questions? Does it make sense?
No, it makes sense, yeah.
All right. So in both cases, like we are isolating a bunch of events. Like even here, why have you sort of taken this to be like one micro event? Like you could have just even like cut it short or something like that.
Yeah,
So it's always a continuous process, but we represent it using distinct events, and like that C causes C through this process rather, right?
okay.
Just a second. Let me just erase that. And at every point in the chain, there are several determinants of which chief one is singled out and mentioned. To understand this, we'll have to go back to the example. Let's run through that gravity example once again, and just bear with me while we run through it. All right? Hello?
Yeah. Oh, you can't hear me, yeah?
No, no, I can't hear you. All right, let's consider that example we were considering previously, which is you have a building of height h. There's a guy standing above holding the ball, and let's just say this is happening on Earth, right? On Earth, that's the situation, and this is ground. Like what happens naturally? Use your world knowledge to sort of predict what happens.
Yeah, the ball falls to the ground.
The ball falls, right? He lets go, the ball falls. If he doesn't let go, then the ball doesn't fall down because it's stuck in his hand.
Right.
So this is one like event, and by this using this we conclude that him dropping the ball, him dropping causes fall down, like the ball falling down. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
now let's take another example, which is this time it happens in space, right? It's a different environment. And in this, let's take the same situation again.
Mm-hmm.
We have the guy, he has the ball, he's the ground of sorts. And like now, if he drops the ball doesn't fall down, it just stays there,
Yeah.
right? So then what is causing exactly? Earlier, even if you relate to this, what was causing it? Then is it not his hand that is causing? Is it gravity? Like
Mm-hmm.
then like if comparing these two events, then we say that gravity seems important.
Yeah.
Gravity seems important now. Like things are unclear. Is he causing it? Is gravity causing it, and stuff like that. So like then we go to sort of a third scenario, which is do it in multiple spaces. Like one is space maker ho ek bar,
Mm-hmm.
try dropping it. If it doesn't go, like then use it on Earth, then go to say Saturn. So as you come to the body with a mass, like
Mm-hmm.
gravity seems to come into play. Then are you
Yeah.
asking, is mass causing it? Like how is gravity a product of mass? And like who is responsible entirely? Then like finally, because we already have our world knowledge, like what do we say? Look, all of these things are important. One, like if the situation is Earth and this guy is standing here, he is also responsible, he is also a cause, gravity is also a cause, the mass of the object that he is holding has also some relation, right?
Yeah.
So you may conclude that three causes are rather responsible for one effect.
Yeah. In fact, there can be many
In
more. that I can now
There
think
can
of.
be many more as well. That was the point that was being made here,
Okay.
which is every link in causal chain is produced by several determiners. Like for example, if you go to sorry, there are multiple effects as well. For example, what do I mean by that? Let's just erase that and come back. So where are you conducting in reality? Like if you come back to reality, where are you conducting the experiment? Let's say you go to space, right? Like right outside of Earth. Like Earth is here, Moon is here. You've traveled all this way to conduct the experiment. You're not in isolation here. You still have like Mars is here. Mars is like acting on this gravity. Like there's sun, huge sun here. Like that Iska gravity is also influencing this. You're hypothesizing or assuming that there is an isolated environment to conduct such experiments, and whatever comes out of it, we are trying to postulate that this causes that or stuff like that. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go back to that this particular slide once again. So, are these 2 points clear? The first 2 points.
Yeah, every link in the chain is produced by several determiners,
In,
of
in this,
which
hmm.
of which the chief one is singled out and mentioned. Yeah, it's clear. Yeah.
So here, why the chief one is because we are not concerned here about Mars ka influence, which is in like epsilon, very chotu. Even the sun ka influence, we just assume that these don't exist at all.
Yeah, we are not considering even the object itself, iska khud ka mass and a lot of
Yeah,
things,
we
other
were we were
things.
initially not considering the object ka like mass itself, and to arrive at equations like exactly what is the amount of cause, like there's a whole mechanism and
Hmm.
research that goes into
So
sort
the
of
chief
determining
one here becomes the
is it F
gravity.
equals to mg square, is it mg, like stuff like that. Sorry, what were you saying?
The chief one becomes the gravity here. Like whatever knowledge we have of the gravity, like that is the thing we single out of all the causes, and that is the box we put it into, that because of gravity it is falling, right? So is
It is
that
because of gravity, but like in a situation where the guy is like sort of restricting gravity, he also becomes important because he's exerting force against gravity. It's not individual here, but the force against gravity that's holding on. So
no?
this
I mean,
force is responsible for the ball not to fall down as well.
and the point is not the experiment. My point is that can we
In general,
say
yeah.
here in the chief one here is singled out, whatever the sentence is meaning? Can we
Hmm.
say that in a general, very vague sense that it is maybe one of the chief things could be gravity? Of course, there can be more chief things as well, but when
Right,
you
right, right. Like
mention it to a
depending on the
layman,
situation.
you don't even think about the person. The only thing that comes in your mind is gravity, right?
Yes, yes. You're not like you have abstracted the man to be only responsible for holding or not holding. You're not concerned about his feelings, where he comes from. You're not asking, he's a guy or a girl, like any of those questions. He's just like force that is acting against gravity, and then gravity is the main sort of driving factor for the ball to move in a certain direction. That is the force that sort of drives the motion. Is that
Yeah.
clear?
Yeah.
Let's run to the third point now. In order for a process to be regarded as causal, either one causal factor or one of the consequences must be singled out of a whole constellation of determinants. We've already covered this. There were a lot of factors like Mars and all that. But for a process to be regarded as causal, one of the factors or one of the consequences must be singled out. Like in the previous example, we saw three sort of causes causing one effect. So you have one effect and three causes. It could be ulta as well. One cause causes three effects and so on, stuff like that. Anything is possible here, right? All
Yeah.
these kind of different models. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Moving on to the fourth point, such as singling out and consequently the neglect of the complement which is singled out is valid and even indispensable as a methodological procedure, but is ontologically objectionable. To understand our world in terms of causality like this, we may have to conduct experiments. We may have to hypothesize spaces of isolation that, like we just did. All of this is required to sort of make sense of a phenomenon that otherwise doesn't lend itself easily to us. While we do this for practical reasons, to just say that this causes that is
Mhm.
ontologically objectionable. The cause is not the only responsible for that only effect. There are multiple things going on in a continuous world that we are part of always. Okay? This singling out is a extreme abstraction that is made by the human that is doing it.
Okay.
Is it understood?
Mhm. The singling out also happens because, like we have discussed before, that the thing which is most important, because I think other factors, a lot of other factors are taken for granted, or maybe assume that okay, they, I don't know how to really put it, but the reason why we focus on uh, gravity more than any other factor in that example is it seems to me that that is the most important factor, or maybe a factor which we are interested in for some reason, like.
Yes, yes. See, I'm not denying the fact that forces like gravity exist or anything like that. I'm just saying that for us to observe what exactly is like causing something, we have to sort of imagine or go to these isolable spaces or create these isolate spaces and to omit everything else, like
Yeah, yeah,
conduct
yeah.
an experiment and determine what is causing what.
You're
So, if,
actually
without
talking,
human like,
uh
intervention, sorry, go on.
you're talking about a concept very close to my field as well, which is where we talk about counterfactual, like
Right, right, yeah.
the same
The definition,
causality, the same
Lewis's
causal
definition is the counterfactual definition. This one.
the same causality concept, when we study it, it's described something as, suppose I have option A and B, and if I want to know the effect of option A, I will have to have access to option B in the exact same condition at the exact same time. So when we do experiments, the problem is that in reality it cannot happen, right? In reality, we can only choose A or B at the same time. If same person, same time, same conditions, you can only do one thing. You can't do two things as if they are, separately done at the same time. That's not possible, like in reality. So that is the way we describe causality. That if we want to see the effect, we have to kind of um, yeah, we have to kind of have the exact counterfactual which you were talking about, the exact same setup or some kind of isolation from all other effects. But the only effect that is activated is the one we are, interested in. All other things are like removed from it. So
Right, right. This capacity to isolate, to abstractize, like for example, even in the this example, the gravity example, like I said, here the human figure didn't matter to us very much, and even I represented him using like some lines and stuff. uh, we have a wonderful capacity to create abstractions and focus on the right kind of information. You are not really concerned about who, like I said, who this person is, where he comes from. Like in the alien text, like if you go back here, when the text was simply given to you, you're asking various kinds of questions. You're not asking all of these kind of questions in this particular example because one, you have imagined an isolated scenario in which this is taking place. You're not asking irrelevant questions about this. You're naturally using your world knowledge, you naturally understand what is and what isn't relevant in this particular situation, right?
I'm not asking about that person because here the problem in hand is the ball falling and
Hmm.
falling, the phenomenon of falling. So,
Falling, right?
if that is the focus, that is the problem, my brain attacks the falling, not falling, why falling, when falling, how falling, but not who is the person, where does he come from, where does he stay, what is he
Right,
saying at
right,
that
right.
point.
Yes, yes, that's my point exactly. But this is rather unique to humans. What do I mean? Let's try to sort of move forward in the lecture to the next slide. We'll come back to this Mackey definition in a second. Let's because just because we are on this point, let me drive another point home. We'll come back here again. So, just a second. So here, right? So here we have an event. Where are we? Yeah, here we have an event. This is a person. This is the person R. This is the person Z. Right? Now we have two systems here. One. Where am I? This is like a non-human, simpler system. This is a human system. Now, as you can see from the diagrams already, we have not depicted real people here. Even the milk, you can't really see the milk. The milk is inside of that like box-like thing, but you already understand the situation, right?
Yeah.
So let's see how a simpler system sort of goes about sort of understanding the situation. Uh, like it is instead paying attention to the lines. For example, in this like particular A, like pay attention to this is in the
Mm-hmm.
same position as this, right? This hasn't changed, the head position,
Yeah.
right? Like check the foot positions as well. They have not changed. Here again, they have not changed. It is the same the opposite side as well. This has not changed. The teacups, tea is right here. It's the right here as well. The table hasn't shifted anywhere. The only trajectory, even this hand that is here, it remains the same here and here. Even like the other hand of this person remains the same. The only thing that changes in if in a space like x and y, in a space like the only thing that changes is this hand ka trajectory. It is in this position in the first one, then it stretches out into that position, then it
Mm-hmm.
like sort of goes into that position and like pours the milk down, right? This is the only changing aspects in these three. Let's call them pictures. Just a second. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So again, going back to the simpler system, look at the what it is paying attention to. Like so, it is paying attention to the. Like, this is again. This is R. This is Z. It is paying attention to the hand velocity of R. Like who is initiating? Like this hand is being initiated here, and it projects out. Right. This is the first scenario. Like let's call this a resting scenario. You have like a projection, right? This has changed its trajectory, and out of nowhere, like if you're a simple system, out of nowhere, uh, like the what was like this sort of became like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that this system does not understand what objects are, what events are, what people are. None of that. It's just tracking changes. It's just tracking what is changing from scenario 1, 2, and 3. What is changing in all these scenarios, which is the hand position. I'm calling it a hand again, but like let's just call it something else there, the vector or something like that. Okay?
Yeah.
Look at it, pay attention to what is it paying attention to. It's paying attention to the Z hand ka velocity, angle of R, elbow angle. Like this, like we have assumed this doesn't change. Let's just keep it that way. Uh, Z ka elbow angle. If it has biceps, then it would be those torques and all that. So Zaks in his paper says this is a very inefficient system because of multiple reasons. One, although it can sort of track positions and velocities, what it can't track is when it will happen. When will this particular person R put forward his particular hand? He doesn't even understand that it's a hand toward the person's head. He doesn't understand this simple system, right?
Hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
Right. Second thing that it doesn't understand is the intention behind it. What is it trying to do exactly? It doesn't have the concept of an intention as well. It doesn't recognize these figures as intentional beings trying to do something or the goal of it. Where will it end? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't understand that as well. But when we come to the human systems, we are not really concerned about velocities, torques, or even angles or anything like that. We are instead thinking of R and Z as people, and the goal is like for from R to Z, the goal is to pass the milk so that he can put it in his tea. Both of them have
Okay.
teas, and to put it in that. So we are not paying attention to a certain kind of information, but something else entirely. But because of this, because we pay attention to some other kind of information, where the earlier system's information is becomes irrelevant altogether. It doesn't matter. Like he could put it at whatever angle, he could like rush out in whatever angle. I mean, if he does it too fast, probably it will spill out. But we understand that as well, and we're not
Hmm.
paying attention to the torques, all these things. We're simply paying attention to the intentions. We understand characters and their goals, right? Intentions and stuff like this. Like even if you see in this R, the human figure R is giving milk. That is the goal here to person Z.
Hmm.
How does he do that? He holds the milk, or like then he sort of passes it to the next person, which is like stretches out arm toward the other person, and then he passes it. So in this way, one kind of information processing becomes more relevant, more easy, more capable of processing complex informations than the other simpler kind of system. Zax is not saying here that humans have evolved from this lower level information processing to this higher level information processing or anything like that. We don't have at this moment uh, uh, a trajectory of where we were and where we are, what we are capable of now. But he's just asking us to consider this shift in the kind of information encoding that we as people are doing from say computer, which just like tracks changes and stuff like that. It doesn't understand people, their intentions and stuff like that yet.
Yeah.
Is this clear?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any questions regarding this?
Yeah. I was thinking of something, but it's not very clear in my mind. I
It's
mean,
all
we
right, go
can
ahead.
definitely perform the low level thinking features of like,
Yes,
so
yes,
if we
we
are asked
can.
to track changes, like you did with me right now, I was able to track changes. But in the first go, when nothing is given to me and my brain starts to think, I think of in terms of mm, the e e thing, like the image, where an event is happening. Um, um, yeah, I'm just like trying to understand why we do it, and if also if it is something that we do since childhood or something that we develop as an adult, like growing up, learning things?
Those
Um,
are two valid questions again. Why do we do this? One, like I said, we don't have an evolutionary sort of mechanism to explain why or how we have evolved this, but it seems like an efficient mechanism that enables us to do bunch of things compared to a simpler systems which humans, for example, can create. Computers can be made to track changes in situations and stuff like that. But what it may not understand yet, at least at this point, is intentions, goals, what will happen, when things will happen, and so on. It can't yet sort of predict people's behavior in that sense. We, on the other hand, because of our extensive exposure to various environments, to people, to their behavior, we tend to build up memory and use that memory to sort of predict or even naturally predict. I'm not saying हाँ ये intentional prediction होता है, like I'm gonna let me predict where things will be. We naturally tend to expect certain things.
we are kind of making the computer do the same through the same process. Yeah, AI is doing this, right?
We are pushing towards that. Yes, we
Yeah,
are creating complex sort of instruments to help us out with what we do, like trying to recreate it in AI as well.
yeah,
Do you
but
have any more questions? Is this panel clear?
yeah, this is fine. I wanted to ask, like, how long do you intend to continue with the like been an hour?
Probably
So
another 20 minutes.
okay.
Do you have that time?
I'm a little exhausted, so I'm thinking if we can take a break.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. Pause the recording. Let's take a break. नहीं रुक जा रुक जा.
Resumed.
What was interesting about what you mentioned was ki how it did take you back, but you did not spend so much time processing it. Rather, you felt the essence of it. Like it was an experiential feeling. You know, it's not just like just a recall, but like an embodied experiential feeling, right?
That also, and more than that, I think um, this entire uh, this entire process of me in a library opening up a book, looking at a Korean thing, a Korean recipe, there is a octopus, which is the statement that it loses its juice when we cook it, so we should not overcook octopuses. This entire thing, it's like an entire process, right? But
Hmm.
when you said the word octopus, and when my mind recalled that event, it probably recalled it in one picture or two picture, like two snaps, two
So
photos,
you
like
have essentially summarized what is spread over time, like maybe like 15 minutes. You have essentially summarized that into two pictures, and as soon as those two pictures crossed your head, you felt that that's enough. That's it. Like that, and
yeah,
you
yeah,
could
yeah.
use language to extrapolate and express it over time.
Yeah, yeah. At the same time, while I was going in the past, at the same time, I could also relate it to what you were saying, that octopus are weird, and I also felt like, yeah, I know we also eat it. Like what? Like, like they're weird, and we also
Hmm.
eat it. That is another level of like weirdness, and we don't even question it. Like this came to my mind, and that is how I was taken back in the past. So I
There
was
are a
also
bunch of
able to argue आगे का हाँ
you are able to.
argue for आगे का, like what I was able to understand what you are saying, go to the past, relate it to what you are saying, and then make some kind of conclusion or like some kind of emotion out of it, something like that.
And then sort of have the material to talk आगे है ना.
Yes,
Maybe agree
you can
with
say
me,
that.
disagree with me, give me an example, discuss this
Yeah,
specific idea and stuff.
yeah.
There's a bunch of research on how memory, sort of like if a mention of a word or something triggers. similar similar itemed memories like octopus memory.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, it's not
Today,
entirely clear to me how these things work, but yeah.
today one of the weirdest things happened. So I was telling you that senior presented a paper, right, today.
Mhm.
I don't know how related this is to the research work, but this guy was presenting a paper on pigs. So it was about hogs, hog market, pig market, okay?
Mhm.
How it functions. The research he's doing is about pig market, and it's quite a big thing in US. Um, and at the same time, a second year student came inside to attend. Like she came in between of the event, and she opened her tiffin box and she was eating something which smelled very non-veg, and the entire lecture I couldn't like I was like, oh my god, she's eating pig. We are talking about pig slaughter and what is happening. It was very strange. I think she was eating pig. I could smell something extremely non. I wasn't sure, but it was hilarious. Anyway,
Mhm.
it has no correlation with the research part. But again, now, oh God, now that you're teaching me this, I'm again and again thinking why I thought of this example right now. And I thought of it because when you said that we relate to words, similar events, I a lot of times I relate to very similar smells, very
Yeah, smells
peculiar
sort of
similar
trigger.
smells.
This all of this is like Proustian memory. There was a guy Proust. His name was. He
Mm,
has like mastered this art of. In his novels, he has mastered this art of evoking memories through the stuff like the smells or like anything like that sort of in the moment stimulus. Seeing
mm.
something or smells or something like that.
I mean, all of these things are also to protect ourselves, no? Like the whole point of remembering a smell, uh, avoid
Hmm.
danger and be in safe thing. It's evolutionary.
Vaguely, it is not enough to understand what the exact adaptive sort of advantages are. For example, even with event segmentation theory, why do we like sort of continuous stimulus को break क्यों करते हैं? ये सब चीजें हैं. We have to sort of exactly figure out what the adaptive
ये
advantages are.
सर्वाइवल के लिए यार सर्वाइव नहीं कर पाओगे अगर
It's
तुम
not
ऐसे
that simple, Akansh. Just survive करो मतलब how is this sort of increasing survival का chance? All these things need to be
नहीं
thought
तब
about clearly. It's not just.
हाँ I get your point. I'm not saying it's very simple, but
Mhm.
it's not. It is a complex thing, and one can think about the whole process of it. But I think it is evolutionary. Like I'm in support of the statement
See,
rather
no,
than
of
the other
course.
side.
Like, see, we have evolved this process. Like, if you one of those people, uh, मतलब one of those people maybe हूँ, but if you sort of acknowledge that whatever we have right now is a product of evolutionary mechanisms, then yes, like clearly we have this capacity and it should be evolutionarily advantageous for us to have evolved this and to retain this as well.
मतलब मैं ये सोच रहा था फॉर एग्जांपल कि अगर कोई बंदा है जो हंटिंग कर रहा है और वो या फिर वो थ्रेट में है कोई लायन है उसको फाइट करना है या फ्लाइट करना है अभी वो ये सोचेगा कि लायन उसको खाने आ रहा है या फिर वो ये सोचेगा कि अच्छा लायन इस वेलोसिटी पे जा रहा है उसका पेट में ऑलरेडी कुछ और चल रहा है लाइक you get my point like if he
Right,
doesn't
again, you're referring to the simple system that I was talking about. Yeah.
uh,
Bunch of things are happening here. One, perception systems are like themselves quite different in the sense ki if you study these, what is the word? Perception systems में भी अलग अलग चीजें होता है. For example, when you look at an object, even if you look at partial picture of it, you can recognize the complete object. There's one of that. What is it called? It's in my head. I'm not able to. It starts with what? Grass. Wait. I can't find names when I want them most, but In any case, we perception में भी बहुत सारा कुछ होता है. You don't have to see a complete object to recognize that object. Uh, you can tell apart from what is a background and what is a foreground. You can perceive depth. Like a lot of like a lot चल रहा होता है ऐसे eyes में, like visual perception. And also another thing is ki combining visual with auditory with smells and like sort of uh, acknowledge that all of them belong to like some particular object or something like that. Integration of like various perceptual stimuli like eyes or the auditory and stuff like that. वो भी होता है बहुत सारा कुछ होता है
The
and
way
also
we the way we interpret something also depends upon the words you use to motivate that interpretation. Have you thought of
मतलब
this? मतलब आज जब ये एग्जांपल दे रहा हूँ आज जब ये
इंग्लिश
सेमिनार
इंग्लिश
अटेंड किया today when I was attending this seminar and the senior was when he started talking he said that my all I want you guys to do is understand hog market. Like we will not go into a lot of technical stuff. I want you to take away the most like not like a lot like more like basically like quality over quantity. So you don't have to understand everything that I'm doing, but if only if you understand the mechanism of hog market, how they function, what is the current situation, like very basic stuff, that would be a success for the thing. So when he started like this, my brain already knew where to focus. Like I was immediately alert. I knew, like, it was almost like somebody has given me a command that focus on this right now. And I am doing it. Like, what I'm trying to say is that if he would have not mentioned these words in the beginning, would I be able to concentrate in a very similar manner? I don't think so. Um, so, so the
Yeah, you
way
may have to determine the purpose of the lecture by yourself. Instead, he gave you the purpose, like focus on the situation, understanding the market, and stuff like that. The purpose
Huh,
was clear
so that removed a lot of brain processing for my brain, right? So it's like first
because you didn't have to process to determine what the
what to
purpose was
process,
the lecture going to be
what to
and
process.
what the relevance that you're going to take away from the lecture.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I just noticed that this kind of thing made a difference.
Hmm.
Otherwise, honestly, when I went there, I was not interested in hog. I was not interested in the paper's title or anything. But it turned out pretty nice. Like I did learn a thing or two out of it.
Maybe when I start my lecture or the class, I should say ki these are going to be the takeaways. Focus on these. Probably it gets easier.
Hmm. With your lecture, also try to do one thing. When we end each lecture, ask me what did I learn from it. Because today I felt like I learned um, maybe 2 points, but I learned them very thoroughly. Like I understood them in and out. But
Hmm.
it was basically 2 points. Like it was not a lot. It was just like the idea we discussed some kind of causality idea of causality but again why we did that was to understand how we naturally automatically simplify um, events in our head or like even when describing things when a lot of thing is going on we just ignore a chunk of information and focus on a very few information. This was my takeaway from the lecture today.
That was the point as well, which is one to highlight how we arrive at what is relevant to us. Like we are able to easily sort of discard out of the whole continuum a ton of information and just focus on this small chunk of information which we use to process that particular situation that we are given, and then sort of make propositions, predictions, and stuff like that.
Yeah. uh,
And the second point,
No, I just said two because like the point was कि अब like the point was कि इतने सारे points नहीं थे, like I was just trying to give you an example like
right, right.
and
2 points would be one on causality and second on the example that maybe we have taken, like simple system, complex system, right? To see key.
yeah, so the simple
How-
system complex system was also giving the same message, right?
right, right, right.
I'm talking about takeaways in the sense of like ultimate messages from it. So is was there
Yeah,
any
that's right.
other
That's an
message?
interesting word that you mentioned, takeaway. It is very similar to themes. When we tell a story, what is the point that it is trying to drive home?
Mm-hmm.
uh, in terms of like stories, it would be themes. For example, friendship is better than like love, or like there are stories that can sort of drive that point home. Like where characters do a bunch of stuff, they showcase key friendship is better than love, like stuff like that. Themes are higher level, even higher level outcomes, messages that we seem to extract from narratives.
Okay.
Hmm.
Mm.
We're functioning on so many levels. It's very interesting. You have
So
these
many
final
levels, man. Crazy.
events combined to coerce event, then to events, then come events combined to situations, and then to narratives. So much is happening.
I think my existence is fulfilled
You're
by
satisfied.
under by understanding how beautiful my brain is, and uh,
Hey,
and
this was
seriously,
another,
man.
like what is on screen is quite an interesting thing as well. It's
What?
called, I think, what is on screen? Can you see the screen?
Oh no, I can't wait. Yeah, now I can.
This whole thing is quite an interesting thing as well. It's called, I think, some three-letter word, WGT or ऐसा कुछ है. What is the
Looks
cause
like
or
a.
what is the cause? ऐसा कुछ है. This is a accident. जब accident happens, they try to like sort of map out all the causes and like uh,
Oh, okay.
and stuff like that. So here is the event. Like the collision happens, is the accident. Collision happens
Mm.
with runaway fence. This leads to this like effect. 50 people died due to airplane crash. So airplane has gone and collided with a runaway fence. Now, these are all the proximal causes. What led to this? What caused this collision is all of these things.
But we'll do this, no, next class.
ठीक है. Nothing. It's not like a. There's nothing point that I'm trying to make. It's just to showcase ki uh, there are people that are studying causality in a particular manner, basically
Mm. No, I
systematic
get
study.
it, but when you are teaching me right now, um, you are not accounting for my state of mind, which is completely. A
Tired.
lot has happened today. My entire day was a long, long day. I
Cool.
am not able to process much at this point. Like
We'll go
there are,
through 3-4 slides that were left in this class. We'll go through them in the next class.
yeah, because when you were talking, like if I can't process it, I'm not even listening. Like I don't want
Keep
to
it
do
short.
that. Like, huh?
Use short sentences. Finish it. Don't like talk for long. That's
Uh,
the message you're giving me.
uh, no, I'm giving you the message that stop talking.
Mm.
At least about work. I had a
All right.
long day, man. There's a student for whom I'm TA, and he has come to me. We had written an email to them that they all are failing, so they should ask for help. So he came to me, and we had a conversation, and it's like a very different. Like suddenly, I'm in this TA duty setup and all of that, and now I'm
Mm.
doing to you what you were doing to me is giving you information out of nowhere which you don't care about. So
All right.
anyway.
Stop the recording. Let's end the class.